go into the podcast app. Once the audio's out, I'll extract it and then go from there. So it's recording. Yeah, I'm new to all this. I'm learning this on the fly. So
yeah, we all are learning.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And
all right. So I don't know if can you log into your Facebook on your phone or something just to see if you have?
I just did. I see it. It's live.
All right, you shared it. Cool. That's all we got to do. All right.
Right.
Let's go ahead and get going. Internet's Facebook family, YouTube. When this hits YouTube, welcome to another Facebook live stream, soon to be podcast with Umar Lee, St. Louis stranger, right?
That's right, baby.
Is that what you go with? All right, man. And the conversation I wanted to have tonight is regarding a post you had made last week about how you reminisced about back in the day when, hanging with some religious brothers, you felt like I think it was talking about the Last Dance, because everyone's talking about the Last Dance right now, because nothing else is going on except the NFL draft.
Right.
So it was about it, and it got me thinking. You basically had to go. Why don't you tell the folks the story or the post that you made?
I'll tell you the story. So in the 90s, East Orange, New Jersey, which is about a half-hour drive outside of New York City, a suburb of Newark, New Jersey, was this large hub for African-American Salafis. And people were actually moving there from all over the country, to the point where people said, we're going to make East Orange a Muslim city. And there was this real energy there. And so I was coming up, living in the DC area at that time. Me and a friend of mine from New York, we drove up to, spend a few days with the brothers on the Dawa. And they had the bumper stickers, no bitter bumper stickers. They had these T-shirts, let the Sunnah go forth and don't try and stop it. They had the same shirt. The man was Abu Muslim. He was very charismatic. It was a very charismatic time. You black me everywhere, and the brothers and the whites over everywhere. And basically, to be the Ghuraba, you wanted to be the strangers, right?
Right.
And sports was from the Kuffar. But I was a huge sports fan, right? I love boxing. I love wrestling. I love, all sports, really. St. Louis Cardinals baseball. And, of course, this is the Michael Jordan going for his fourth championship. At that time, almost everybody was a Jordan fan. I mean, you go to St. Louis, everybody was wearing Bulls stuff, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we were watching WGN, and we were watching Bob Costas on NBC. We were watching Jordan, right? And so it was like I don't know if it was Game 7, but the game they won the championship, me and a friend was like, yo, we got to watch basketball. And we were asking people, yo, where can we watch the game? And they're like, Aki, the ulama have said, and they say, you should be listening to lectures or reading books, and one said, but the kuffar, if you go to the bars where the kuffar are taking khamr, you can watch the game. I was like, come on, man, I just want to watch the game. So we ended up finding a brother, he was showing it at his house. And so we went to his house. It's his mother's house. He's like living in the basement. And so me and my friend from New York, we came in there to watch the game. But my friend didn't even want to watch it, right? So as soon as the Bulls won, and Jordan had collapsed. I don't know if you know that picture. Jordan collapses and cries.
Right, I remember. Yeah. And
everybody's into it. Everybody's watching it. The brother gets up. It's not even his house, man. He gets up and turns the TV off, takes out a mushaf and starts reciting Quran right there. So that was the climate back then. That's what it was.
Now, let me ask you this, because you grew up, you're from St. Louis. I assume you've been a Cards fan since birth.
I've been a Cards fan since birth. I've been a boxing fan since probably I was a toddler.
Right.
Wrestling fan. Just a huge sports fan, man.
Right. So, and you convert to Islam, I think it was 92, right?
92, yes.
So what point did you realize, because, I don't know that religious Christians have this issue. I've never heard of a conflict with religious Christians not watching
Maybe some
sports.
small like little sects or something, but
Yeah,
like I grew up in the church and they were like hardcore sports fans. Like
right,
yeah.
right. And so, like, what point did after converting to Islam did you realize that people had a problem with it?
Not immediately because in St. Louis, you know, well, you had a divide. You had like quote unquote the immigrant community, right? And there was nobody really my age from that community. They were all like older, like my father's age and older, and then like there was children, but like my age, there was like a gap. There was hardly anyone my age. So I was hanging out with like older African American brothers, and they were all St. Louis Cardinals baseball fans and sports fans. I didn't really learn about this divide between Islam and sports until two things happened. Really, Sheikh Rahman Basir came to St. Louis, who was my early teacher and Suhaib Webb's early teacher, and he was pedal to the metal hardcore. I mean, like sleep on the floor because the prophet slept on the floor, and there was no sports or movies, no television, nothing going on, right?
Right.
And then when I went to the East Coast in the Salafi movement, you know, they didn't like sports. And then when I went to Tabligh a little bit, Tabligh were like, come on, Aki, you were doing Karooj, you could be on Dawa, you're
Mm-hmm.
doing Jolla. What are you doing, man? This games. So it was a little bit later on, not immediately after I converted.
I mean, do you think? I mean, that's something we don't end up talking. Like when people are given dawa, and I hope the brothers who are on that tip. I
Yeah.
don't know if that's part of their pitch, by the way, because they say like people know you got to give up pork, you got to give up
Right.
alcohol, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But if you tell somebody, because that's something, sports is a thing that guys especially connect on, right?
I mean, if you're in Chicago, you tell somebody you had to give up the Cubs,
Yeah.
it may be a good Dawa pitch. It may be like, hey, man, this
Yeah.
is a good religion right
Well, if you're a Cards fan, but the idea of giving up baseball, right?
here.
I
Right,
mean,
right.
I think because I remember a post you'd had on your old blog. I remember. I think I read this like 10 years ago, maybe, about how sometimes brothers when they come into the dean, like it's a gradual process, for the
Right.
most part. Like most people can't have like the soul has a certain way about itself. It's been conditioned a certain way. Just because you change religions all of a sudden doesn't mean like, oh, boom, I'm gonna go 0 to 60. I mean,
Right,
you
right, right.
could, but you might burn out and like fall on your face.
And most do
Um,
burn out. Yeah,
right.
yeah,
So I remember you saying something that sometimes when you convert to Islam, you just want some guys that because now you're trying to associate with a different crew of brothers, and
right,
all you want to do is you want to sit on a Sunday and watch an NFL game, right?
right,
But
right.
then in those communities, it seems like, and I think we were out, and like you said the other, we were talking offline. It's not maybe our experiences were within the Salafi Dawah, even my own,
Yeah,
as far as like this kind of sports thing, but
right.
I don't know that's necessarily just restricted to. It's all religious Muslims, to a certain extent. I think.
I think it's many different factors. I think just hardcore communities, whether they be Salafi or Sufi or Tablighi, they may have a animus towards sports, like you're wasting time and you could
Hmm.
be doing dicker and stuff like that, right?
Right.
I mean, even my old friend Ismail was my buddy from St. Louis
Yeah.
forever. Like, I saw him the first day I ever entered the masjid. Uh, Ismail was never he wasn't a sports fan before he converted, right?
Yeah.
And then he used to watch he was like, man, you wasting too much time on sports. You know? So you have those personality types that some of them are not even Muslim, but within the Muslim community, I think a lot of more hardcore people have that tendency. But I think there's a divide because I have some Muslim friends that we only talk about sports together, right?
Hmm.
If I'm in St. Louis, we get together for boxing matches, we get together for football games, you know, NBA finals. There's a brother in St. Louis I watch the NBA finals with every year.
Hmm.
There's a group of brothers I watch the big boxing matches with, going back years, right?
Right.
Um, the Rams left, but we were watching Rams games together.
Yeah.
Um, in the DC area, I have some good friends. These were brothers that were pedal to the metal back in the 90s. Matter of fact, I'm writing a memoir right now, and I actually just wrote about this. In the 90s, these were brothers, you would get with them, and they'd be talking about this jihad group in Indonesia or this and that, and the Muslims, and now like they're playing fantasy football and cheering for the Redskins and the Ravens and the Cowboys. They all got different teams,
Right.
but we get together and we bond over sports. Similarly, when my dad calls me, whenever me and my father talk, I would say 95% of the conversation between me and my dad is about sports. With me and my dad, it's St. Louis Cardinals baseball, and it's NCAA wrestling and international wrestling. That's most, and some boxing.
Right.
But we're talking about sports together. And that's just kind of a way, when he asked me, hey, did you see the Cardinals sign this free agent? That's really just a way of him reaching out. Like, hey, how you doing? This or that, right? But sports is kind of the language that we use to bond. And I grew up in a place in, Ferguson, Florida, area, North St. Louis County that was hugely divided on race. And really the only thing you saw bring people together was everybody was St. Louis Cardinals baseball fan. When I was a kid, everybody liked the Big Red, St. Louis Cardinals football before they moved to Arizona. Everybody was, teammates playing for high school football teams and high school wrestling teams, et cetera. Sports really brought people together. Outside of boxing, because boxing a lot of times you would like have, Larry Holmes against Jerry Cooney as a white dude and the black dude or something like that. And, then they start fighting in the schoolyard.
Is St. Louis I know you're a little bit older than me. Was St. Louis a town where boxing had a good fan following? Like, how did you get into boxing, I guess? Is that from your family background or what?
Yeah, I mean, like some of my earliest memories in life are like my dad and grandpa and Uncle Jimmy talking about boxing, coming back, watching closed circuit boxing matches, Sugar Ray Leonard, Roberto Duran, Tommy Hearns, Marvin Hagler. And then, we produced a lot of great boxers. The Spinks brothers came out of St. Louis at that time, Michael and Leon. Leon beats Muhammad Ali, loses the rematch, Michael becomes a light heavyweight champion. And boxing is just big in St. Louis. And boxing is big where I came from. And the men in my family were big boxing fans. And so that's how I got into boxing. And so, like after 9/11, when I got burned out writing about Muslim stuff, this is before I started blogging, I just started writing for boxing websites. So I went to live in New York. I got press passes at Madison Square Garden. I'm having lunch with boxers, Klitschko brothers, whole 9 yards. And so it was really one of the funnest things I ever did was covering professional boxing.
The thing that comes up when talking about boxing and MMA is obviously the whole Islamic perspective on hitting in the face.
Right.
Now, I know that a lot of brothers, like most guys I know, are in, especially now with Khabib, they're all in the MMA, or at least they'll watch something, right?
Right.
But some of them be like, well, we really don't like, so I remember when I first heard about MMA, and this is when I realized that people who don't watch sports is what they do. Muslims who aren't into sports will come at you to that angle like, oh, the aura is showing, or this thing and that. But they only throw in that shame, they call it a shame grenade because they don't watch sports. Right. Like they themselves are probably they might be playing a video game where they got some chick who's like not covering out, like, half naked running around, right?
Or you got the people, it reminds me that they said they were going to boycott the NFL because of Kaepernick.
Yeah.
But they don't even watch football anyway.
Right. Exactly. That's not their thing. So what would you say, like, but do you ever deal with that? Do you think about that? Like, I haven't researched the subject too much, right? Like, what are your thoughts on that? Like, how do you process something like that, where some aspect of a sport might be like kind of problematic? Like, I'll give you my answer to be front. I kind of like don't think about it too much.
Yeah.
And I just chalk it. I'm like, I'm taking L's all day as far as sins go. Right. I kind of chalk it up for that. And I'm like, maybe it's the way I approach my shortcomings in general is that, like, I try to focus on the positive stuff that I do and hope that eventually it washes away the negative.
So my philosophy is this, because I'm a big boxing fan, people have came to me many times, Muslims, like, striking in the face is haram, this or that. And I'm like, look, man, I grew up fighting. Been fighting my whole life, and you're gonna go into a fight and talking about you ain't gonna strike nobody in the face, and he's throwing bombs aimed at your jaw. Well, you know you're gonna lose that battle 9.9999 times out of 10, my brother. So it's just a practical argument. Also, with wrestling, the aura, can be uncovered or the clothes can be tight. But one thing about the sport of wrestling, like boxing, you have a lot of Muslims in the boxing industry,
Mm-hmm.
African American Muslims especially, that have excelled. Not just the big names like Muhammad Ali, but a lot of people, Julian Love, Bernard Hopkins, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Um, Boxing is an environment where you can take your wife in hijab to a boxing match and not worry about getting harassed or anything like that, right?
Okay.
Because it's a very diverse crowd, and there's a lot of Muslims in the boxing industry, especially on the East Coast. You know, so with wrestling, the sport of wrestling, which is kind of the best base for MMA, if you look at all the UFC champions that are Americans, they all come from wrestling backgrounds. The sport of wrestling in America, you see very few Muslims involved. There's a young Muslim brother out of Chicago wrestling at Northwestern right now, but there's just very few Muslims involved. Like I was a wrestling coach, I started a wrestling club, couldn't get really Muslims to be involved with it, right? And we know like there's the post 9/11 reframing the narrative thing that they don't want to, they want Muslim boys doing poetry and pottery and stuff like that, right? But internationally, Muslims are dominant in the sport of wrestling. Like I attended the World Wrestling Championships in Vegas in 2015. Like over half the medal winners were Muslims. You look at the Russian wrestling team, it's almost all Muslims from Dagestan and Chechnya. There's a lot of Iran is a strong wrestling country. The Central Asian countries are strong at wrestling. Azerbaijan, et cetera. There's a lot of Muslims that are powerhouse. Turkey is a strong wrestling country. There's a lot of Muslim countries that are powerhouses in the sport of wrestling, but none more than the North Caucasus, and Iran, Dagestan, Chechnya, Ingushetia, and Iran. And so I always wonder, like, hey man, if you got this strong history of Muslim wrestling, and I know it's not in the Indian subcontinent and the Arab world, which are kind of the big population centers for the Muslims in America, but you would think would have a degree of popularity with Muslims, especially since, wrestling is in the Sunnah. It's talked about
Right.
Sahaba wrestle each other. And it just never happened. Whenever I do see young Muslims wrestling like a high school kid, I'm happy, man. I want to hug them, trying to say I'm happy to see it because I grew up wrestling, love the sport of wrestling, and I think it's the best sport for young people.
There's a kid I know, and there's a Bangladeshi kid, this family friend of mine. He used to wrestle in Chicago. He wrestled all 4 years in high school. I think he works in pharmaceuticals now. Like he never went beyond high school, but I actually saw a lot of kids going into it later. Like when I was in high school, like late 90s, it wasn't like as prominent. In the 2000s, I saw more of it because like some of us brown, like Desi kids were already like, our frames might be suited for it in a way.
Yeah, so wrestling is the best sport for little people. You know what I'm trying to say?
Right.
I mean, the combat sports in general, you look at boxing, the two most money-making and famous boxers in the world, you would say, right? We'll say three right now, outside of the heavyweights: Floyd Mayweather, Manny Pacquiao, Canelo Alvarez, right?
Right.
They're competing at 147 and 160.
Mm-hmm.
These are elite athletes, the best athletes in the world at their sport, 147, 160 pounds. Vasily Lomachenko at 130, 135 pounds, etc. Gervonta Davis filling out the arena, 135 pounds in Baltimore. There's a few other sports where a guy can be an elite athlete at 135 pounds, because in the combat sports, and could be even 155 pounds or 145, 155. In combat sports, you compete against people that you're same size because you have to weigh in. So wrestling weight classes are starting at 103 pounds in high school, right? So you can be an 103-pound kid and win a state championship in the sport of wrestling, or be a good wrestler at 103 pounds, right? So if you're a small frame kid you know, you can compete against kids your own size. Whereas, basketball, football, or even baseball, size is very important uh,
Yeah.
in terms of being able to compete.
Right. Let me ask back to your story about St. Louis, like when you first met, was it Sheikh Abdul Basir?
Yeah, Sheikh Rahman. We call him Sheikh Rahman. Yeah.
So, what was so Imam Sohaib now comes across as like a sports fan, like he's a
For sure,
Celtics
he is.
fan, but
100%. Yeah.
was he like? How did he approach? Was he back then? Because I remember.
Nah, bro. Nah, bro. That old Suhaib and this Suhaib, it ain't nothing in common, bro.
So he didn't watch sports back then. He was just like, "Nah, this is like." Was he?
Man,
He was on that tip, like, "I don't need this."
the old Suhaib had a turban. He had a huge beard. He was screaming. You know what I'm saying, man? The old Suhaib was hardcore. I mean, if you ever see any of them old Hummus Yusuf videos where
Yeah.
he's screaming and saying stuff to get him on a no-fly list today, he was a moderate compared to the old Suhaib. Suhaib and this Suhaib, there's very little, very little in common. So,
there's a there's a lecture by Imam Sohaib called "Zina: The Disease of a Thousand Faces." Right?
yeah,
It's
right.
from like 15. It's like from 20 years ago, I think. I found it on. You remember aswatalislam.net?
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
That old website. So I still have. You can still get the lecture. So I remember I ran into him, or I saw him. I sent him a WhatsApp message. I was like, "Hey man, this lecture is still dope. Like, I don't care what you say. I know like half the stuff he comes across like hardcore in it." That lecture got me to give up listening to the music. I listened to this music, and then like he was talking about how he was DJing, and he was thinking about what the lyrics of it was like I think it was Doggy Style by Snoop Dogg.
Right.
And then he was thinking about, man, I'm a Muslim, man. I can't believe I'm playing this stuff. And that got me to think like, oh,
Doggy Style, Doggy Style. But the thing with Suhaib is a lot of his old lectures,
yeah,
because Sheikh Rahman does not allow himself to be recorded.
okay.
He's been at it for like 40 years teaching. Right? 40
He
years.
passed. Is he alive still, or did he pass away?
He's alive. He's not in good health, but he's alive.
Okay.
But he's been in Imam since like the late 70s, right?
Okay.
But he doesn't allow himself to be recorded.
Yeah.
I recorded him secretly one time, and then like an idiot deleted the recording on accident, right?
Right.
So a lot of the old Suhaib hardcore kind of borrowed on some of the phraseology of the Sheikh. And the Sheikh was even more hardcore, man. The Sheikh told me that when he had to sit down with his wife, right? He said the first thing he told his wife, he said, "Sister, my goal is the destruction of Western civilization." So, the Sheikh was old school and hardcore. When the feds came to him after 9/11, they were like, "Sir, we have no records of you in the system anywhere for decades." He said, "What happened?" And he said, "Allah loves me." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sheikh was just old and hardcore. I mean, he's an imam for African American Muslims, and then you have the eyeballs like me and Suhaib mixed in, right? But they would invite him, to give the khutbah like these immigrant masjids, right? He would get up in the minbar at a place full of like Desi doctors and Arab shopkeepers and stuff, and I'd be like, "You made hijrah to Kufr, brothers. What did you come here for? A green card. Did you get your green card? Is it worth your children's deen?" He was hardcore, man. So,
now, since you mentioned he's dealing with an African American community, like even with the African American community, sports fandom is a thing, right? So
yeah,
how are these guys processing that? Like
I said, like in the hardcore Salafi movement, like in Philly, the East Coast.
Yeah.
What you will find is like it wasn't publicly cool to talk about sports, right?
But low key, they were listening, they were watching.
Yeah, they were watching. What I'm saying? At the matches, they'd be like, "And the brothers who are wasting their time on this ball made of pig skin, that's the kuffar," this and that, But a lot of them brothers, they was watching the games.
Right.
They was being like, Aki, I have to get home. My family, they was going home to watch the Eagles or going home to watch whoever. You know what I'm saying?
Right, right.
So a lot of people were sports fans on the low. And how you knew when you really got cool with somebody, like when they were really your friend, they'd be like, "Yo, you want to go watch the game?" And then they turn on some Jay-Z on the way to watch the game. That's how you know that y'all had really got cool. You know, so if you
Yeah.
would hear about it, you would hear about it. Like I had one friend, and he told me he didn't watch sports. He told me he didn't listen to music either.
Right.
So I was with a mutual friend of ours, and I was like, "Hey man, so and so man, he don't." He said, "What?" I was just watching the game with him. And so I knew we weren't at that level of tightness because he hadn't told me that he's a sports fan.
Yeah. This is I got a story for you. So in 2005, so when I went to undergrad at Ohio State. Like everybody know, like people who know me will accuse me of like having asabiya towards Ohio State and like hatred towards Michigan.
The
But
Ohio
like
State University.
yeah. So if and I don't know, you never mentioned college football, but I think as sports fan, you probably have enough knowledge to know that Ohio State and Michigan hate each other.
I know that. Yeah.
You know that much, right?
Yeah.
So like I think in 05, we were I think number 2 and number 3 in the country in the preseason poll, and then Texas was number 2. USC was number 1 that year when they had Reggie Bush and Matt Leinart.
When Texas had Vince Young.
Yeah, so that season we were hosting Texas for a Saturday night game in Columbus, and I had tickets. So I remember what I would do is I would park my car. The masjid was about a mile from the stadium, and I could like walk over. I could park at the masjid, and then kind of because it was like almost like undergrads and grad students.
I've been to that masjid before.
Masjid Umar Lee Khattab.
Yeah.
Okay. So I end up I go there for Dhuhr. It's a night game, so it's like 8 p.m. kickoff. So I go there for Dhuhr, and then my plan was just to like just hang out with some of the brothers and then like make my way, but also be discreet about it because I know not because we prayed Dhuhr, and then I go to my friend's place. His Bangladeshi brother is like a PhD student, and then one of my other friends, and his brother, they're Palestinians, and we grew up together. We went to like high school and stuff, and they actually used to play high school football. Like they were about that like whole American life, and then when they got to OSU, they got into and our MSA was pretty hardcore. So like we weren't like Medkali type or that, but they were pretty like they were almost on that Salafi J word, if you know what I'm saying.
What year was this? 2006?
2005.
Yeah, because I was saying in the 90s, there was a lot of MSAs like that.
Yeah, it's 2005, right.
And you go there and they have Abdullah Zam books and Wali and Sheikh Suleiman, all that stuff. Yeah.
So in 2005, so my boy, my boy Hussam, who I went to high school with, he was like, man, this whole week, all they talk about is this football game. It's like their religion. I hope they lose, all this stuff. And meanwhile, I'm just sitting back. I'm just silent. And his brother's name was Nasser. Nasser was a PhD student.
It's burning, and you're watching football.
But I didn't reveal that I was going to the game or nothing, right?
Yeah.
I just like Nasser because he was a PhD student, so he had a pass. He could get into the labs. He had special parking too, like close to the stadium. Yeah. So I was like, "Hey man, you going to campus?" And I was like, "Yeah, I got some work to do there. Can I get a ride with you?" So then I had and then he was driving, and then he was like stuck in traffic. The game day traffic was getting crazy, and he's like cursing him out, like, look at all these, people wasting their time. And I was like, hey man, I can jump out because he happened to be stopped in traffic. There's like a bridge, the Olentangy River, and then the stadium, and he was stuck in traffic right there, so I could get out, cross the bridge, and be at the shoe. So I was like, yo, I can jump out right here. I'm gonna go to the engineering library, which I was going to. I stopped at the engineering library, which is pretty close to the stadium, to pray Asr, and then like I think it was Maghrib because it was a night, and then I forget. I may have actually missed Maghrib, but I don't remember. And then I go to the game, but it was just like this whole spiel about how I was with a crew that they were just hating, and I remember when I first got involved in MSA, I wasn't really that religious. I only joined MSA. I first went to like see if there was any girls there to meet, and then I realized that that this MSA wasn't playing that kind of game, but they had really good pizza. They had really good pizza, like Detroit style pizza.
Desi hardcore Salafis are different. You know what I'm saying? Because the Desi hardcore Salafis, they're not playing. Like,
but we had a combination. We had Afghan, Desi, and Arab Salafis.
I'm saying if you would have went to like the hood Salafi masses I was at,
yeah,
you could have became Salafi on Monday, and by Wednesday been married.
Right. I mean, the Salafi joint that there was like, I don't know if you ever heard of this dude named Abu Muhammad al-Maghribi.
Yeah.
He was the imam there when I started going there. And that was a lot of immigrant Iraqi, Somali cats, and a lot of brothers from Philly and Newark who were burned out from the East Coast drama, and they moved to Columbus.
Yeah, they moved to Columbus, they moved to Peoria, Kansas City.
Right.
Places.
So it was just like, and even with those guys, I remember the World Cup was going down in 06. I was like talking about, oh man, the World Cup game, like World Cup 06 Germany was a great World Cup. I don't know if you follow soccer at all.
I watch every 4 years, the World Cup.
Okay. Yeah, the World Cup in 06 was a great World Cup. And I remember talking about it.
Yeah. Germany won that year, like Croatia was fourth.
Nah, that was the year Italy won. Remember Zidane headbutted the dude.
Zinedine Zidane headbutted the guy, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, that was the year. And Germany was the host nation, and they made to the semifinals, but Italy took them out.
With all the headers. I remember that,
These brothers, these brothers were all talking about us. This one brother was like talking about Asabiya, this and that. And I was like, man, you just mad that Germany beat Saudi Arabia 8-0. Because, these brothers in the Masjid Columbus, if there was someone from Saudi, man, they thought, like, we'd had international students come through from Saudi Arabia. And they were like heathens. Like, you know what I'm saying? Not trying to practice the deen, but they might pop in a masjid.
Yeah.
And then they start worshiping, like, oh, you should be the imam. You're from the Mamlaka.
Right. Let it be. With the Saudis, so Ismail Roy can tell you that the pre-9/11 Saudi college students, they were all grad students. They weren't sitting undergrad.
Okay.
They all had big beards. I'm not talking about like short beards. I'm talking about big beards, right?
Yeah.
They were married, wives in niqab. In any city you went to, the Saudis usually all live in the same apartment complex. And they would usually rent out one apartment as the masjid and one apartment as the clubhouse.
Right.
The clubhouse, nothing haram, just sitting around talking, drinking tea, eating chicken and rice. And they were hardcore. So I learned a lot about the Islamic movement and Islamist theory from these Saudi students because all they were talking about was deen and Khilafah and et cetera. You had the pro-king faction and the anti-king faction, right?
So they weren't like Madakula types?
There was a spectrum. There was a spectrum. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
There was a spectrum. But they were all religious, all of them. You know what I'm trying to say?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And then what happened is after 9/11, they left. And when the Saudis came back, they were undergrads, they were clean shaven, they weren't religious, there was a lot of women students. It was a whole different thing, right? Yeah. So now I'm not saying none of the Saudi students in America are religious, some are, but it's just most of them are not. I mean, there's a lot of facts. Like I'm reading a book, I'm getting ready to finish it actually, about MBS right now. I mean, Saudi Arabia is a complex place. I have to say, man, look, I have nothing but great experience with Saudis personally. Studied at Saudi school for a little bit. I love Saudis. The government's a different thing. But it's a complex situation. But
right.
They were mostly big soccer fans. The ones that I knew. Mm-hmm. Another thing is in the '94 World Cup, we were doing what's called the milk hustle. Me and some African American Muslim brothers. Ismail Roy used to come with us sometimes too. We had this hustle getting paid to go buy baby milk. And our plug were these Malaysian brothers who were graduate students at Washington University in St. Louis.
That's a good school. That's like Ivy League. That's like one of the top elite private schools in
the
country.
one brother, Mansour, he's a professor at the International Islamic University now in Malaysia.
Okay.
And so I sat with them brothers and we watched the O.J. Simpson Bronco chase. There was a lot going on during that time period. But during the '94 World Cup, it was like, yo, we're going to shut down and watch soccer. I said, what you mean, man? We got to get this money. We want to watch soccer. And so, my other friends, they weren't trying to hear it. my African American was just like, nah, man, that's a white boy sport. We don't mess with soccer. My brother Mukhtar, I said, you know what? I've never watched a soccer game. When I was a kid, pardon my language, and St. Louis has produced a lot of soccer talent. A lot of soccer talent. The team that beat England had 5 starting St. Louis players, 4 Italian kids from the Hill, and Harry Keel, an Irish kid from Corona. So they gave me like a flyer. You want to play soccer? I brought it home to my dad. I said, hey, Dad. And he said, son, soccer's for pussies. Say just like that. Say we play football. It was just, so I never watched soccer growing up, but I learned to watch soccer and appreciate soccer for the first time 1994 with the Malaysian brothers watching the World Cup, which was the first time like America had been in like 30 years or something. I can't remember. It's been a long time. So I learned to appreciate the sport of soccer, and I've still never played, but I appreciate the sport.
But I think that's an interesting because people can. One of the concepts with Islam is this concept of brotherhood, right? And you alluded to in the beginning. That is something that how else would you connect? I've got a friend, so I did Hajj in 20. So on this note, by the way, also if you think about the religious leadership today is different than how it was back because I wasn't religious in the 90s. So when I hear about your guys' stories, it was all like I went to ISTA in 94, 95, but me and I'll tell you a story. I'll put my boy on blast. So ISTA 94, 95 were in Columbus, Ohio, back-to-back years, right?
I remember that. They were in Columbus.
Did you go?
No, but I remember they were in Columbus.
Yeah, so my dad would I was like in 8th grade, 9th grade, right? Yeah. And the only reason I went, like me and my friends would go, and we were just like checking out, like, so my parents couldn't like afford, like they wouldn't buy me the kind of gear I wanted to get, right? So me and my friends would just go around and just like see what like the college kids or the high school seniors who had like some money, what kind of kicks they had, what kind of jerseys they were rocking. And then we were just hanging out in the arcade. And then and we were just doing like goofy high school stuff. Like my boy, we walked into, there's this room at the Columbus Convention Center called the William McKinley conference room or something. And there was like a jug of water there. I was like, hey man, I dare you to go in there and piss in that jug and come out. So like he went in there, did his business. We go in to check. Yeah, that's piss. Yeah, he pissed in his jug. Then we like just go out there, throwing Snapple bottles on the top of the roof, just all kinds of, whatever dumb kids were doing.
Diana.
Yeah, I was an Diana. It's not. So I just hear when I hear you guys talk about the 90s, I'm just like, oh, I was alive, but I was into the Dean.
You're one of them annoying kids who were like, man, get them the hell out of here. Man.
Yeah, right.
Days.
I remember, and then in the 2000, I think, and I forgot what the hell, but I think that's what more or less the there was another story before I went on that tangent about like the whole brotherhood aspect of how it brings people together, because I think that's something we kind of. Oh, I will tell you this story though.
Even with the Malaysians and soccer.
No, there's something about Isna. It was something other than pissing on the pissing in the jug.
Check this out though, man.
Yeah.
It ain't just the Malaysians in soccer, but like when I went to the World Wrestling Championships, I wanted to hang out with the Russian team.
Yeah.
The Dagestanis, right? Abu Rashid, Sadulayev, and Abdulsalam Gadisov, and and all those guys. And I got the chance to meet him, which was really cool. But that was just a Muslim thing, right? That because no other Americans care anything about the Russian Dagestani wrestlers. I mean, maybe they got a little shine now because of Khabib, but for this certain connection, look at all these Muslims rooting for Khabib and getting together. Like when I watched Khabib versus Conor McGregor, I went to Hooters. Okay, I'm at Hooters. You know what I'm saying?
Are there all Conor fans there?
All Conor fans.
Okay.
I'm the only person rooting for Khabib.
Okay.
And I went into the fight like, because I liked Conor. I used to like Conor. I don't really like him now just because he talks so much trash. But I say, look, I'm not really rooting for no. I just want to see a good fight. That's what I said last time. When I watch a fight, I just want to see a good fight, right? When I seen all them talking crap and booing Khabib and cheering Connor, I started Khabib, Khabib. I started going hard for Khabib.
Yeah.
And when he won, man, I was talking stuff. Hey, Khabib, hey, so it's really this kind of Muslim camaraderie built over sports. Look at all the Muhammad Ali fans throughout the world. Prince Nassim Hamid. I mean, over and over. Anytime you get a Muslim athlete, Amir Khan, that does well, they'll get a lot of Muslim support. From all over.
Right. I remember what I was saying now. So when we came up in the mid 2000s, the shuyukh that we used to listen to, like Muhammad Sharif from Al Maghrib, right? He was never really into sports. He still isn't, right? Oh, he says stuff now. He's like, even the people back then who were like saying like don't waste your time, I think they've understood that you've got to like talk to people at their level, right? Yasser Qadhi's not into sports. He's just a nerd. Yeah, I've known Sheikh Yasser for like 15 years. I remember picking him up like
he's a love guru.
Right. Well, that's Yasser Bridges. But Yasser Qadhi's got that class now too, the like a garment. Yeah. But even he himself, you see, like he's now the meme king. If you look on social media, he's always like, he always gets at his haters. He trolls them back. Like that's like a new refined Yasser Qadhi. But I remember in 2005, it was like I did Hajj Umar Sulaiman, right? So I'm in Umar Sulaiman's group, and we're in the minute tents, and he's a Saints fan. He's checking the NFL scores on his phone, right? I think that's the thing that you see that people aren't the shuyukh because it's at the end of the day, it's like now. We talked about this on the Mad Mamluks podcast that like, is it an issue that we ourselves as an ummah, we're just getting more soft and watered down, we're just allowing stuff, or do we just have I think it's an understanding of the reality.
Man, he grew up in New Orleans, just an American kid, man. And,
right.
He likes sports. Suhaib, I think he went through his little phase, but at the end of the day, he's a kid from Oklahoma. He likes the Boston Celtics. He likes his Oklahoma college teams. He likes sports. You know what I'm saying?
So he's always been a Celtics fan?
I think so. Probably, I'm just going to guess. Yeah. Because remember, before there was Jordan, there was Celtics Lakers. And a lot of people were Larry Bird fans or Magic Johnson fans.
And him being from Oklahoma, yeah. Maybe he was Irish too. I don't know. Is he Irish?
Like, I don't know, man. But he's white. In terms of saying all the white kids were Celtics fans.
Right.
But my dad loved the Celtics, in terms of and like when I was in school, it was a race thing. The white kids were Celtics fans. Black kids were Lakers fans. It just, it was that kind of a deal. He just probably went back to what he was. And he probably was always catching the scores on the down low, things of that nature.
Oh, yeah. I got a question for you. Since you have some insight to the African-American experience, so I remember when I went to school, like, so when I grew up in Columbus, we were like, I never lived in the hood. I lived in like kind of like in campus housing because my dad was a grad student.
Buster Douglas.
Yeah, but I got bussed in. I got bussed into some school sometimes.
But Buster Douglas, remember Buster Douglas, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
And he's from Columbus.
He's from Columbus, right.
Yeah.
Actually, a friend of mine just posted a picture. They were like training together or something on Facebook. Yeah. But the question I noticed something that like amongst the African American kids, there were a lot of fair weather fans. Mm. Like they would have the question they would ask like, oh, who's your team this year? Mm. Now I don't know if it's because in Columbus
that might be a Columbus thing, man, because
we don't have a pro team. I don't know.
Because they don't have no pro teams. You go to St. Louis or Baltimore or Philly or New York, they're hardcore, man.
They're all gonna be so everybody like. When you were in high school, it was Cards. You guys had the Cardinals football team back then, right? When you were in high school, or did they already go to Arizona?
When I was a kid, we had the Cardinals football team. And then when I was like 12, they moved to Arizona, and then we didn't have a team for a few years. We probably didn't have a team for like 6 years, something like that.
Yeah.
And then the Rams moved to St. Louis.
Right.
I think it went about 7 years actually with that team, and then the Rams moved to St. Louis. They they were terrible. They win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, no, I got you. So it might be a Columbus thing, but even that, I know because we had Ohio State. Ohio State's always been like Columbus's pro team, right?
Yeah, but a lot of people are not really into college. Like me, I can't really get into college football too much.
Right, but what I'm saying is Columbus, though, a lot of the kids in my school, Ohio State fans were the minority when I was like younger, because they were okay. They'd be like 8-5 or like 9-3 or something.
They not identified with Ohio State, man, because
they were a lot of Miami fans because of the U. A lot of Florida State fans. I liked Florida State when they had Charlie Ward. You know,
see, when I used to watch college football back in the day, when you had Miami, Penn State, Oklahoma, Nebraska, those are the good teams. But like Mizzou always sucked when I was growing up. So like now the only college sport I watch is college wrestling. Bummed out that the NCAA wrestling championships that were being Minnesota this year were canceled.
Right.
But that's the only college sport I watch. Like I'll follow the St. Louis University Billikens basketball too.
Yeah.
Because they're a St. Louis team. So I'll root for them to do well in the NCAA tournament. I mean, Mizzou used to have a good basketball program, but they've really fallen off. So I'm basically just watching college wrestling as far as college sports goes.
Yeah, I mean, you can't watch, you don't watch college sports too much. Like college basketball to me has lost its way because it's just got. I remember watching the championship game between UConn and Butler a few years ago, and they had like 20 points at halftime. They were just shooting up bricks.
Yeah.
And I was like, the quality's deteriorated so much that everybody's gone pro.
One and done. John Calipari. Succeed and proceed. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, I mean.
Really, I'm going to tell you what I have a lot of respect for. Like my niece just graduated from college.
Mm-hmm.
There are two of her teammates in the WNBA now.
Okay.
Her friend Nafisa Collier that went to UConn.
Right.
She's at the Minnesota WNBA team.
Mm-hmm.
And her friend Suge Sutton that went to Texas. She got drafted by the Washington WNBA team.
Mm-hmm.
And they all stay 4 years. It's just like wrestling. They're staying all 4 years, right? So they get better and better each year. But a lot of these basketball, they're just one and done, succeed and proceed. And, they end up in the NBA. So it's not as, like you could be a terrible team like Memphis, and they get Penny Hardaway, the coach, and all of a sudden they're a top 10 team just because they got some good recruits.
Right,
just
right.
like that,
Yeah. I mean, that took the fun. I've always been a UNC fan. But like I remember even when I went to Ohio State, I was still like, oh, UNC would play Ohio State. My boys would be like, man, why are you rooting for UNC?
It's treacherous and traitorous.
But I mean, I love the Buckeye. Even basketball, I still follow them. But I think with football, what happened is they got the 3-year rule at least.
Team too, by the way.
Sorry?
I said they have very good wrestling teams too. They won the NCAA championship in 2015.
I did remember seeing that. I see it in my feed.
They had the 2016 Olympic gold medalist, Kyle Snyder.
Yeah, I've heard of him.
And they have the coach, Tom Ryden.
Okay.
He has a saying, positive infinity. That's his motto, positive infinity. So
right. So anyways, as we kind of I want to wrap up, but like as we like, we're without sports. You already alluded to you missed out on the college wrestling championships.
Yeah. End of the XFL season, St. Louis Battlehawks.
Yeah.
The beginning of baseball for the St. Louis Cardinals. So many boxing matches, so many UFC, NBA playoffs, the NHL playoffs for the St. Louis Blues to defend their crown. I mean, we've missed out on a lot. So what I've been doing, watching old boxing matches on YouTube, watching wrestling matches on YouTube. I got the ESPN Plus app, so I'm watching a lot of things.
Yeah.
And also, I'm gonna tell you something, man. For the last few years, man, I've been studying cricket, man, and becoming a fan of cricket.
Really?
Yeah.
I do know the Bangladesh won. I'm Bangladeshi. They won the Under-20 World Cup this year.
Yeah, but the big World Cup, I think New Zealand won, right?
I don't know. I know Bangladesh. New Zealand may have won. Yeah.
England beat New Zealand.
England won, right?
Because I'm here in Dallas Fort Worth area now, which I hate. I hate.
I'm sorry?
Texas. I mean, Daisies love Texas. I hate Texas, man. But I kept on getting the advertisements for places to go watch India versus Pakistan, and that was a big deal when they played.
Yeah. So like, I on that so have you always hated the Cowboys, or like you always hate everything Texas?
Well, no. I've always hated the Cowboys since I was a kid. I never stepped foot in the state of Texas until I was 34, and it's a punishment from a law that I've had to. But I never really thought about Texas, but I just always disliked the Dallas Cowboys. I never liked the Cowboys. And but now that I'm living here, part of my coping mechanism for having to live in Dallas Metro, because I hate it so much, part of my coping mechanism is to root against any Dallas team or any Texas team, any Texas athlete in any sport. Houston Rockets, Dallas Mavericks, Houston Texans, Dallas Cowboys, Texas Rangers, the cheating Houston Astros. It could be a boxer, the Charlo brothers from Houston, Errol Spence from Dallas. I am rooting against whoever represent the state of Texas.
That's some D hate right there. I grew up. I'm still a Niners fan. So me, the Columbus kid, man. We had the Buckeyes, but like pro teams, we just picked. So I was a Niners fan, a Bulls fan, and a Seattle Mariners fan.
Mariners.
Yeah, so I felt because like I fell in love with Griffey.
Yeah, we had a nice swing.
Nice swing, and they get that video game.
Should have picked the Cardinals, man. You're not a far drive from St. Louis.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I don't think what got me to fall in love with them. There's always instances that got me to like a team, right? For the Bulls, straight up, like you said, everyone liked Mike. Everyone liked Jordan, right?
Everybody liked Jordan, yeah.
Right, so that's a natural thing. The Niners, I remember I watched the first time I realized I was a fan I was rooting for that. They're playing the Cowboys in a '92 NFC Championship game. It was the year Steve Young was MVP. The Cowboys won that year.
I remember that.
Then they went on to like destroy Buffalo in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's when I caught myself first rooting. That's what I would notice. You would like root for a team, and then they would like hit your heart or something.
Well, see, the thing for me with the NFL, I can't cheer for a team that's not St. Louis. So I thought about picking another team, but I just couldn't pull the trigger, man, because I can't cheer for a team that's not a St. Louis team. I just couldn't do it, man.
So now you just root against the Rams and the Cowboys.
I just root against the Rams and the Cowboys, you know. And so, like the Super Bowl, not this one, but the one before, I rooted against the Rams. I rooted for the Patriots to beat the Rams. I rooted against the Cowboys. Like this season was great to me because the Cowboys fans had such high hopes. They went 3-0. You know, they were really thought they were going to do something this year. And I do like Ezekiel Elliott because he's from St. Louis, right?
And Ohio State.
St. Louis to Ohio State.
Yeah.
He represents St. Louis hard. And they thought they were really going to do something. And the Cowboys didn't make the playoffs. I have to say it was a beautiful and wonderful thing that really touched my heart to see the pain and suffering of the Cowboys fans.
Right. I was you know, when the Browns left Cleveland in high school, I remember a lot of people became Steelers. A lot of Browns fans.
That was a terrible thing. Yeah.
Became Steelers fans for a temporary time.
I hated that.
You know, I don't know if it was a way just to get back, but I don't know if that was like everyone had their own coping mechanisms. The Rams, the St. Louis Rams didn't really have a big like rival, did they?
No, not a really big rival because they were only in St. Louis 20 years.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And you know, and geographically they were the NFC West, and all these cities are so far from us. You know, on the West Coast. So really, they should have been like either in the NFC North or the AFC South to be around teams that were in close proximity.
I mean, it would seem like the natural, like the teams that St. Louis teams tend to have a rivalry with the Chicago teams, right?
Well, you know the NFC North with, you know, Chicago, Green Bay, Minnesota, and who's the other one? Chicago, Minnesota, Green Bay, and
Detroit.
Detroit, or they could go AFC South, you know, Indy, Nashville, you know, Tennessee Titans, you know, and those teams, right? So one of those two divisions could have been a geographic fit, but
right.
It wasn't meant to be. Stan Kroenke played St. Louis. They took the Rams to LA. They're building a stadium in Inglewood, and may they have the fate of Death Row Records and Suge Knight.
Did they so did you're not like a Chiefs fan because Kansas City's close to St. Louis, right? But
well, actually the closest city to St. Louis is the NFL team geographically is Indianapolis. But the thing about it is this. In Texas, for example, they have a real strong state pride. The flag is everywhere. People have Texas State tattoos, jewelry, T-shirts. They're very strong identified to the state of Texas. In Missouri, you only see the Missouri flag at a government office building to get your driver's license or something like that, right? Nobody cares about the state of Missouri. There's not this, like, St. Louis people like St. Louis. They have the St. Louis flag in front of their house. They're hardcore in the St. Louis culture. St. Louis style pizza, St. Louis fried rice, toasted ravioli, gooey butter cake, all of our St. Louis history. 1944 World Series, all in St. Louis, Cardinals and the Browns, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We love St. Louis. We don't really care about the rest of the state of Missouri. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Kansas City is pretty much the same way. So, like, there were some people in St. Louis who were like, yeah, it's in our state, it's close to us, let's see and get the W. For me, I didn't really care. The only reason I did root for Kansas City is this. I like Andy Reid because he's the guy that gave Mike Vick a second chance. And I'm a Mike Vick fan and the Pitbull offense fan.
Right.
When his son died, when his son OD'd, I thought he'd been through a lot. He paid his dues. Had a lot of good Eagles teams over the years that was fun to watch and just never won the big one.
Yes, sounds good. All right, bro. All right, Omar, appreciate you coming through. Hope people enjoy this. You got any parting words or anything about fandom that we didn't touch on? Or
my parting words is this: go Cardinals. See you right here, and y'all just socially isolate yourselves. I've been socially isolating since I started blogging. As anyone can say, I'm socially isolated from the Muslim community. So I had an early start on this COVID-19 preparation. But everybody take care. Have a good Ramadan. I'm not having no samosas this Ramadan. It was hurting my heart. But, what can you do?
What about your memoir you talked about? Is that coming? You dropping something soon or what?
Well, I'm near the completion of the manuscript. I got a little ways to go, but I'm almost done. But then, inshallah, I got to find a publisher. So, I'm trying to find a publisher. And so we got to see how long this process takes. But I'm looking forward to it.
All right, man. Good having you on. Good seeing you as always. Much love. Have a good Ramadan, man. Take care. All right. Trying to close this off. The live.